Vanessa didn't bring a legal brief, a counselor's report, or a stack of polished documents. She brought a child's lunchbox. It was pale blue, with a white latch that had begun to loosen and a faded rabbit sticker peeling at one corner. She held it between two manicured fingers as if it were something damp, something shameful, something she had found in the bottom of a trash can instead of inside a little girl's school bag. Then she placed it in the middle of the long walnut conference table. The sound was small, a hollow plastic click. But inside Clara Whitmore, the mother being asked to defend her place in her own daughter's life, it landed like a door being locked from the outside. Before we go deeper, tell me where you're watching from tonight. And if you've ever seen a quiet mother mistaken for a weak woman, leave a like, subscribe, and stay with Clara's story. Because some truths don't storm into a room. They wait patiently until everyone else has finished lying. Now back to her story. The conference room at St. Aurelia Academy was made of glass, money, and restraint. Glass walls, glass pictures, glass awards behind the principal's desk. Even the silence seemed polished. Outside, children in navy uniforms moved across the courtyard in bright little groups, their laughter softened by the thick windows. Inside, adults sat around a table pretending this was only a school meeting. Clara sat near the end, both hands resting over the strap of her beige handbag. Her coat was clean but old, with cuffs she had mended herself one winter night while Lily slept beside a fever thermometer. Her hair was tied low at the nape of her neck. Her face carried the pale calm of a woman who had learned not to bleed in rooms where people came prepared to call it weakness. Across from her sat Adrian Cole, Clara's ex-husband, the father now trying to have her pushed to the edge of their daughter's school records. He adjusted the cuff of his navy suit with a tired, important expression. He looked exactly the way he wanted the room to see him, responsible, successful, burdened by a difficult former wife. Beside him sat Vanessa Hale, his new wife, wearing white silk and the ring that had replaced Clara's place at his side. Her phone was turned face down, close enough to suggest she could make anything public if she chose. Vanessa opened the lunchbox. Inside were 2 rice balls, a folded egg omelet, and apple slices cut into stars. She gave a soft laugh that pretended to be concern. "This," she said, turning the box toward Dr. Marlowe, the principal, "is what Lily brought to school today." Nobody moved. Vanessa tilted the box a little farther. "She attends one of the best international schools in the city, and her mother sends her with leftovers in plastic." Clara's fingers tightened once on her handbag strap. Only once. Adrian looked down and shook his head, as if he hated that things had come to this. "We're not here to humiliate anyone." That was how Clara knew he was. Vanessa continued, her voice smooth enough to slide under doors. "This isn't just about food. It's about standards. Stability. The kind of environment Lily deserves." A woman from the parent advisory board glanced at Clara's coat, then at the lunchbox. Another parent looked away too quickly. The air shifted in that quiet, ugly way rooms shift when people think poverty has entered without permission. Adrian slid a document across the table. Academic Guardianship Revision. Clara read the heading without touching the paper. "This would make me the primary academic contact," Adrian said. "It would simplify communication. Better decisions. Less confusion. Less Clara." That was what the paper really meant. Then Clara saw a small shape beyond the glass wall. Lily, her only child, stood in the corridor beside the art teacher, clutching both straps of her backpack. Her dark hair had slipped loose from one braid. She was supposed to be in music class, not watching adults decide where her mother belonged. But children have a way of appearing at the exact moment adults forget they are listening. Clara looked from Lily to the lunchbox. The apple stars were already turning faintly brown at the edges. Vanessa's voice softened into cruelty. A child shouldn't have to feel small because her mother refuses to accept help. Clara could have answered. She could have told them about the mornings, the fevers, the missed pickups, the school gate at dusk, the promises Adrian had treated like loose change in his pocket. Instead, she swallowed every word, not because she had none, because her daughter was watching. And the lunchbox Vanessa had turned into a weapon had been packed before sunrise, on a morning Adrian had already forgotten. At 5:12 that morning, the city outside Clara's kitchen window had still been blue with sleep. The apartment above the pharmacy was quiet except for the kettle trembling on the stove and the low hum of the refrigerator. Clara had moved barefoot across the narrow kitchen, careful to avoid the floorboard near the sink because it creaked, and Lily had finally fallen asleep after another restless night. On the counter lay a small cutting board, one boiled egg, a little rice, and a red apple. Clara shaped the rice with damp hands. Her palms moved gently, pressing warmth into something simple. She folded the omelet into a neat square, then sliced the apple thin. With the tip of a small knife, she cut each piece into a star. Lily had once said stars tasted better. So Clara kept making them. Her phone lit up beside the lunchbox. Adrian. Can't pick her up today. Something came up.
No apology.
No second message. No question about whether Clara could rearrange her work, her bus schedule, her whole afternoon. She stared at the screen for one breath. Then she turned it face down and closed the lunchbox lid.
Click.
Now, inside the glass conference room, that same small sound seemed to linger in the air. Vanessa was still talking, but Clara's mind slipped through a crack in time. She was back in the old house 5 years earlier, standing beside a birthday cake she had baked from scratch while rain hammered the windows. Her hands had been dusted with flour. Lily was 3 then, asleep upstairs with a paper crown beside her pillow. Adrian had come home late with his suitcase already packed. "I can't keep pretending this is enough," he had said. Clara remembered looking at the suitcase first. Not his face. The suitcase. Brown leather, expensive, the first thing he bought after his company closed a profitable real estate deal. Rain ran down the window behind him, as if the house itself were trying not to look. "What isn't enough?" she had asked. He glanced at the small dining table, the handmade decorations, the cake cooling under a towel. "This," he said. "This life. You're good at small things, Clara. I need a bigger life." Small things. He had said it as if small things did not keep children alive. As if meals, medicine, clean uniforms, bedtime stories, parent emails, birthday candles, and warm hands on fevered foreheads were not the architecture of a childhood. The night he left, Lily woke up and saw the suitcase by the door. Clara knelt, smiled, and said, "Daddy has a trip." She lied so gently she almost forgave herself. But children learn absence faster than adults learn honesty. In the months after the divorce, Lily began asking questions no child should have to build with her own mouth. Did Dad leave because I cried too much? Does Vanessa have better toys? If I live with him, will he stay? Each question entered Clara quietly and stayed there. She never told Adrian. He would have turned even Lily's pain into an argument about Clara being too emotional. So Clara did what she had always done. She made breakfast. She packed lunch. She answered school emails. She stood outside classrooms. She learned the names of Lily's friends, the names of their pets, the days Lily needed gym shoes, the days she had spelling tests, and the days she pretended her stomach hurt because Father's Day crafts were being made in art class. In the conference room, Adrian leaned back like the tired parent who had carried too much. Clara looked at him and felt nothing sharp. That surprised her. The pain had not disappeared. It had simply stopped asking to be understood by him. Vanessa tapped the lunchbox with one polished nail. "This is not what a child at this school should be carrying," she said. Clara's eyes moved again to the glass wall. Lily was still there. Her face had gone very still, the way children look when they understand enough to hurt, but not enough to defend themselves. Back in the room, Adrian mistook Clara's silence for shame because he had never learned the difference between guilt and
grace.
Adrian pushed the silver pen toward her. It rolled halfway across the table, catching the white ceiling lights along its polished side. For a moment, everyone watched it instead of Clara. Such a small object. Such a clean little instrument for erasing a mother. "Just sign it," Adrian said. His voice was low enough to sound reasonable and loud enough for every adult in the room to hear. He had always known how to pitch cruelty at the exact volume of concern. Clara looked at the document again. Primary academic contact: Adrian Cole. Secondary contact: Clara Whitmore. Secondary. The word sat on the page like a stain. Vanessa folded her hands. This doesn't mean Lily won't see you. Nobody is taking her away from you. Clara almost smiled. People often say nobody is taking something right before they reach for it. Dr. Marlowe, the principal, had not spoken much. She sat at the head of the table, silver hair cut neatly at her jaw, glasses resting low on her nose. Beside her was Ms. Elian, the school counselor, her notebook closed, one hand placed carefully over it. The parent advisory board members had been invited because Adrian had insisted this was a matter of school community standards. Clara knew what that meant. He wanted witnesses. He wanted pressure. He wanted humiliation with letterhead. A man with a gold watch cleared his throat. Perhaps it would help to think of Lily's long-term opportunities, Mrs. Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore. Clara had kept the name after the divorce because Lily cried the one time she mentioned changing it. Adrian had hated that too. Even Clara's name had become territory he wanted back. Vanessa leaned closer, perfume drifting across the table. Lily needs a mother figure who understands the world she's growing into. There it was. Not stepmother. Mother figure. Clara's gaze moved to the lunchbox. One rice ball had shifted when Vanessa opened it. A few grains stuck to the side. She remembered Lily rubbing her eyes at the kitchen counter, whispering, "Can I have the star apples today?" She remembered smoothing Lily's hair. Of course. She remembered checking the time, because if they missed the 7:20 bus, Clara would have to pay for a ride share she could not afford. Adrian's pen waited. The room waited. Lily watched through the glass. Clara placed her fingertips on the pen. A tiny movement passed through the room. Vanessa's lips relaxed. Adrian's shoulders lowered. Someone at the far end of the table exhaled, as if the unpleasant part had finally ended. Then Clara slid the pen back. It returned to Adrian with the same soft roll. He blinked. Clara did not raise her voice. "Not in front of my daughter." The room changed again. This time, the silence was not polished. It was exposed. Adrian turned toward the glass wall and saw Lily. For 1 second, his face lost its arrangement. Not guilt exactly. More inconvenience, like a stain had appeared on his sleeve during a photograph. Vanessa recovered first. "Oh," she said softly, turning toward the corridor with a practiced frown. "Sweetheart, this is an adult discussion." Lily did not move. Clara did. She stood, not abruptly, not dramatically, just enough for Lily to see her fully. She gave her daughter the smallest nod. A promise made without language. The art teacher gently guided Lily away, but Lily kept looking back until the hallway turned. Only when her daughter disappeared did Clara sit down again. Adrian's jaw tightened. This emotional display is exactly the problem. Clara looked at him then. Not with anger, with distance. He had expected tears. A trembling defense. Maybe a plea. He had prepared for the version of her he left in the rain. The woman with flour on her hands, trying to hold a birthday cake and a marriage together at the same time. But Clara was no longer that woman. In her handbag, beneath a folded scarf and a packet of tissues, lay a sealed gray folder. She had not brought it because she wanted revenge. She had brought it because truth, too, deserved to be on time. And while they thought Clara had brought nothing but silence, there was a record of every day she had stayed. After Adrian left, the house became too expensive before it became quiet. Clara sold the dining table first, then the extra lamps, then the armchair Adrian never liked but Lily used as a castle. She moved with her daughter into a one-bedroom apartment, above a pharmacy, where the radiator clicked at night and the hallway smelled faintly of soap, raincoats, and old mail. For the first month, Lily slept in the bedroom while Clara slept on a fold-out sofa in the living room, waking before dawn with a stiff neck and a list in her head.
Rent.
School fee installment. Uniforms, shoes. Groceries. Medicine. Electricity. She wrote everything down in pencil because pencil could be corrected. Ink felt too permanent. Before the divorce, Clara had been an interior architect. Not famous. Not wealthy. But good. She understood how light changed a room, how a hallway could make a child feel watched or safe, how furniture could invite conversation or shut it down. She had left full-time work when Lily was born because Adrian's company was almost at the turning point, and someone had needed to hold the ordinary world together while he chased the extraordinary one. After he left, she returned to work in fragments. A kitchen redesign for a retired couple, a nursery layout for a woman who paid late but cried when she saw the drawings, a cafe corner for a friend of a friend. Clara worked after Lily slept. The apartment would go dim except for the blue glow of her old laptop and a small desk lamp she had repaired twice. Her coffee went cold. Her wrists ached. Sometimes she woke with her cheek pressed to tracing paper, a pencil mark across her skin. Then the alarm rang, and the day began again. She learned to make one chicken stretch into 3 meals. She learned which bus drivers waited when they saw a child running. She learned to sew blazer buttons so neatly no one at St. Aurelia would notice they had fallen off twice. She learned not to flinch when other mothers discussed ski trips, private tutors, and summer programs in Switzerland. At school events, Adrian arrived rarely but brilliantly. He came in polished shoes, carrying gifts, smelling of expensive cologne and late apologies. He took photos with Lily, posted 1 or 2, and left before cleanup. Clara stayed. She stayed for parent duty, for lost water bottles, for fever calls, for forgotten art supplies, for the winter concert when Lily froze on stage, and searched the audience. Until she found her mother's face.
Nobody photographed that.
One afternoon, an email came from St. Aurelia. The school wanted to renovate a small and used room near the library into a wellness space for students. The budget was limited. They were asking whether any parent with design experience could offer suggestions. Clara read the email while Lily did homework at the kitchen table. "Mom," Lily asked, "why are you smiling?" "I'm thinking," Clara said. That night, after Lily slept, Clara opened a blank file. She did not design a room that looked expensive. She designed a room that felt forgiving. Low shelves, warm lamps, curved furniture, a round rug instead of square lines, a wall where children could choose weather cards to show feelings they could not yet name, a corner by the window where nobody had to make eye contact until they were ready. In her proposal, Clara wrote only one sentence at the top. Children need rooms where they don't feel examined. The school accepted her design. She asked that her name not be displayed. Not because she was ashamed, because Lily had just begun to feel normal there, and Clara did not want whispers attaching themselves to her daughter's safest place. That room would later become the place where Lily finally said what she had been too afraid to say at home. The wellness room smelled faintly of cedar, paper, and the lavender sachet Ms. Elian kept in a drawer for anxious children. It was not large. That was what made it work. Sunlight entered through one tall window and softened against beige curtains. There were no sharp corners near the rug. No glass table.
No ticking clock.
The chairs were low enough for a child's feet to touch the floor. On one wall hung the weatherboard. Sunny, cloudy, rainy,
stormy.
Lily chose stormy the first time she came. Ms. Elian, the counselor assigned to Lily after her teacher noticed the little girl getting quiet on Mondays, did not ask why too quickly. She only placed a cup of water nearby and sat in the other chair with her notebook closed. Children notice when adults are waiting to write them down. So Ms. Elian waited without writing. Lily twisted the strap of her backpack around her fingers. "If I say something bad, will Mom get in trouble?" "No," Ms. Elian said. "Feelings don't get people in trouble here." Lily looked at the weatherboard. "Dad says Mom makes things difficult. What do you think?" Lily shrugged. It was a small movement with too much weight in it. "Mom is tired, but she still comes." Over the next weeks, Lily returned to the wellness room 3 times. Then 5. Then whenever a teacher noticed her going quiet after weekends with Adrian, she did not accuse him with the clean language adults prefer. Children rarely do. She spoke in pieces. "Dad forgot it was library day. Vanessa said plastic boxes smell. Dad's house has a room for me, but I don't know where my socks are. Mom knows I don't like pears." At Dad's, everyone smiles when people visit. At Mom's, she smiles when nobody is looking. Ms. Elian began to document concerns. Not gossip. Not judgment.
Patterns.
Missed pickups. Late arrivals. Emotional distress after comments comparing households. Anxiety around being replaced. Meanwhile, Dr. Marlowe began to notice other patterns. Clara was the parent who replied to academic emails within hours, even if the reply came after midnight. Clara attended meetings with notes written on the backs of old envelopes. Clara never demanded special treatment. When she could not pay a fee in full, she came before the deadline, explained precisely, and paid in installments exactly as promised. Adrian donated publicly. Clara showed up privately. There was a difference, and Dr. Marlowe had worked in education long enough to recognize it. One afternoon, after Lily had chosen Stormy again, Ms. Elian asked, "When do you feel safest?" Lily thought for a long time, not because she did not know, because the answer seemed too small to matter. "When Mom closes my lunchbox," she said at last. "She always says, 'I'll see you at 3. And she does." Ms. Elian wrote that sentence down after Lily left. She underlined it once. The next week, Adrian requested a formal review of Lily's school contact information and emergency notification order. His email was long, polished, and copied to 3 members of the Parent Advisory Board. He expressed concern about Lily's emotional stability, Clara's financial limitations, and what he called inconsistent maternal judgment. Dr. Marlowe read the email twice. Then she asked Ms. Elian for the student welfare notes that could be appropriately reviewed under school policy. Then she opened the old design file for the wellness room and saw Clara's name in the metadata. Quiet people often leave traces where loud people forget to look. The school did not tell Clara everything. Not yet. They simply sent an email asking her to attend a meeting and to bring any relevant documents regarding Lily's care history. Clara never knew how many of Lily's words had already been written down. But when the email arrived, she understood one thing clearly. The room that had once protected her daughter was now asking Clara to stop protecting the man who kept hurting her. The morning of the meeting, Clara woke before the alarm. For a few seconds, she lay still on the fold-out sofa and listened to the apartment breathe. The radiator clicked once. A delivery truck passed below the window. In the bedroom, Lily made the soft turning sound of a child not quite awake. Clara sat up slowly. There are mornings when fear enters before light. This was one of them. But fear did not move her hands.
Discipline did.
She washed her face, tied her hair, and put the kettle on. She ironed Lily's blouse with careful strokes, pressed the collar flat, and set out navy socks beside polished shoes. Then she opened the bottom drawer of the small cabinet near the kitchen. The gray folder lay beneath old warranty papers and a small box containing her wedding ring. She had not built the folder in a single night. It had grown slowly, almost reluctantly, over 14 months. Printed emails from teachers. Screenshots of Adrian canceling pickups. Receipts from pediatric visits. Attendance notes. Fee payment agreements. Records of calls. A copy of the wellness room design proposal. A drawing Lily had made of Clara standing under an umbrella outside the school gate, rain falling everywhere except over Lily. At first, Clara had saved these things because she was afraid. Later, because she was tired of being called difficult by the person creating all the difficulty. And finally, because some part of her understood that memory alone would not be enough in a room full of people who trusted paper more than women. She opened the small ring box. The wedding band sat inside, duller than she remembered. For years, she had thought removing it would feel dramatic. It had not. One evening, after washing dishes, she had simply realized it no longer belonged to her hand. She placed it in the box and never wore it again. Now she looked at it once, closed the lid, and left it in the drawer. She did not need a symbol of what had ended. She needed evidence of what remained. In the kitchen, she packed Lily's lunch. Rice balls, omelet, star apples. The same meal Vanessa would later hold like an insult. Lily appeared in the doorway, hair messy, eyes still heavy. "Is today the big meeting?" Clara closed the lunchbox.
Click.
"Yes." "Is Dad going?" "Yes." "Is Vanessa?" Clara paused just long enough for honesty to choose a gentle shape. I think so. Lily looked down. Are you scared? Clara walked over and knelt to button her daughter's cardigan. She wanted to say no. Mothers often want to give children clean answers, polished like stones. But Lily had lived inside too many half-truths already. A little, Clara said. But being scared doesn't mean we give people our place. Lily's eyes lifted. Clara smoothed one braid behind her shoulder. And rooms that don't know the truth, yet can learn. On the bus, Lily leaned against Clara's arm. Clara held the gray folder on her lap, one palm resting over it. It did not feel like a weapon. It felt like weight. The weight of receipts, dates, signatures, waiting rooms, missed calls, and small promises kept at great cost. At the school gate, Lily hesitated. Clara crouched and handed her the lunchbox. I'll see you at 3, she said. Lily looked at her carefully, as if checking whether the promise had changed because the day was different. Then she nodded. By noon, that same lunchbox would be placed on a table by another woman, and Clara would finally stop protecting Adrian from the consequences of his absence. By the time Clara returned fully to the present, Adrian was
standing.
He had always performed better on his feet. It gave him height, shape, authority. In restaurants, he stood to greet investors. At family dinners, he stood to make toasts. During their marriage, he stood in arguments because it made Clara feel seated beneath him. Now he stood beneath the white lights of St. Aurelia's conference room and became the father he wished everyone to believe in. I love my daughter, he said. No one questioned it. People rarely question love when it comes dressed in a tailored suit. I have never wanted conflict, he continued, glancing at Clara with practiced sadness. But Lily is growing up. She needs consistency, structure, access to opportunities. I can provide that. Behind him, Vanessa clicked the remote. A photo appeared on the screen. Adrian's house. White stone exterior. Wide lawn. Tall windows. A bedroom with pale pink walls and a canopy bed. A study area with imported shelves and a gold reading lamp. Everything looked untouched, like a catalog waiting for a child to become decorative inside it. Vanessa smiled. We prepared this space for Lily months ago. Clara looked at the photograph and thought of the socks Lily could never find there. Another slide appeared. Extracurricular opportunities. Private language coaching. Equestrian camp. STEM enrichment. A summer program in Geneva. The words filled the screen like expensive snow. A parent advisory board member nodded. The man with the gold watch folded his hands in approval. Adrian lowered his voice. This is not about punishing Clara. She has done what she can. But sometimes love means admitting our limitations. There it was again. The soft knife. Clara sat very still. She could feel the gray folder in her bag against her ankle. She could feel the room leaning toward Adrian's version of care because his version came with photographs. Wealth had a way of making itself look like proof. Vanessa turned to Dr. Marlowe. We want Lily to thrive. That means reducing unnecessary instability. Instability. Clara almost heard the apartment above the pharmacy inhale. The repaired lamp. The bus schedule taped to the fridge. The lunchbox washed every night and dried upside down on
a towel.
The small bed where Lily slept knowing exactly who would be there in the morning. If that was instability, then perhaps the word had never met a mother. Dr. Marlowe finally removed her glasses. The gesture was quiet, but it cut through Adrian's presentation more cleanly than an interruption. Mr. Cole, she said, thank you. Adrian gave a modest nod, already preparing to sit as a man who had done the difficult but necessary thing. But Dr. Marlowe did not look at him. She turned to Clara. Mrs. Whitmore, did you bring the documents we requested? The air shifted. Adrian's head turned sharply. What documents? Vanessa's smile held for 1 second too long, then thinned. Clara placed one hand on her handbag. For the first time all afternoon, the room stopped looking at the lunchbox. She opened the bag, drew out the gray folder, and set it on the table. It made no dramatic sound. It did not need to. Adrian stared at it as if paper had no right to surprise him. Clara's fingers rested on the cover. She did not rush. She did not tremble. She only looked at Dr. Marlowe and nodded. "Yes," she said. "I brought them." And the perfect father performance began to lose its lighting. Clara opened the gray folder. No one spoke. Even the projector seemed quieter, Adrian's beautiful house still glowing on the wall behind him like a dream that had forgotten to become a home. Clara removed the first page and slid it toward Dr. Marlowe. A pickup record, then another, then a printed chart. The principal read in silence. Ms. Elian leaned slightly closer. The parent advisory board members waited with the impatience of people who had expected embarrassment and were beginning to sense evidence instead. Dr. Marlowe looked up. For the past school year, according to gate logs and sign-out records, Mrs. Whitmore completed 183 pickups. Mr. Cole completed 7. Adrian gave a short laugh. "My schedule is complicated." "That doesn't mean." Clara placed the next set of pages down. "Screenshots." "I can't make it today." "Running late." "Tell her not to wait." "Something came up." "You handle it." "Maybe next week." The words looked smaller on paper than they had felt in Clara's life. That was the strange cruelty of evidence. It flattened the nights, the waiting, the child's face at the gate. But it also made denial harder. Vanessa shifted in her chair. Clara added medical forms. Lily's fever visit in February. An allergy consultation in April. The afternoon she fell from the climbing frame and needed stitches. Each form signed by Clara. "Adrian paid the insurance premiums," Vanessa said quickly. Dr. Marlowe looked at her. "We are not discussing payment. We are discussing presence." The room absorbed that word. Presence. It was not glamorous. It did not photograph well. It did not impress donors at school galas. But suddenly it sat at the table heavier than Adrian's house, heavier than Vanessa's diamonds, heavier than every polished sentence they had brought. Clara turned another page. Ms. Elian's notes. The counselor placed a hand lightly near the folder before Vanessa could object, not to hide the notes, but to remind the room they belonged first to a child's welfare, not to adult pride. Dr. Marlowe read only what was appropriate. Her voice stayed professional, but something in it cooled. Student expresses recurring fear of being replaced in father's new household. Student reports distress after comments comparing mother's home unfavorably to father's home. Student identifies mother as primary source of emotional safety. Adrian's face hardened. She's a child. Children say things. Ms. Elian spoke for the first time. They do, which is why adults should be careful what they teach them to believe. Clara did not look at Adrian. She was looking at the lunchbox. The apple stars had browned further. They still looked like stars. Then Dr. Marlowe reached the design proposal. For the first time, her expression changed. She turned the page, then another, then looked at Clara over her glasses. "The wellness room," she said. Clara lowered her eyes. "I didn't want Lily's name attached to anything." Dr. Marlowe held up the file. "This room was recently recognized as part of our student care initiative. Mrs. Whitmore designed it voluntarily, without public credit." A parent at the end of the table looked down. The man with the gold watch removed his hand from the document Adrian wanted signed. Vanessa stared at Clara as if she had found a door in a wall she had been leaning against. Then the conference room door opened. Ms. Elian stepped out briefly and returned with Lily, who had been waiting nearby with her art teacher after seeing enough through the glass to know something important was happening. Clara's breath caught, but the counselor gave her a small nod. This had not been staged for pain. It had been allowed for truth. Lily stood inside the doorway, eyes moving from face to face. Then she saw the lunchbox on the table. She walked toward it. Nobody stopped her. She picked it up with both hands and held it against her chest. Dr. Marlowe closed the folder. Based on the student welfare record, school attendance logs, counseling notes, and documented care history, St. Aurelia Academy will not remove Mrs. Whitmore as Lily's primary academic contact. Adrian opened his mouth. No sentence came out clean enough to save him. Then Lily looked at the adults and said the one thing no document could have said better. "Mom always comes." After the meeting, the hallway seemed brighter than before. Not warm exactly, just honest. Children were being released from afternoon classes, their voices spilling through the corridors in uneven waves. Sneakers squeaked against polished stone. Somewhere near the music room, a child laughed too loudly and was gently shushed. Life continued with the careless mercy of places children still trusted. Clara walked beside Lily, one hand holding the gray folder, the other open at her side. Lily slipped her fingers into it. The lunchbox swung from the crook of her other arm. Behind them, the conference room door opened again. Adrian stepped out first. He looked smaller in the hallway than he had beneath the projector lights. Without the slide of his house behind him, without the table, without Vanessa arranging sadness beside him, he was only a man in an expensive suit who had forgotten the difference between providing and parenting. "Clara," he said. She stopped, but did not turn fully. Vanessa stood a few steps behind him, silent now. Her white dress looked too bright under the school lights. For once, she did not seem to know where to put her hands. Adrian glanced at Lily, then back at Clara. "We should talk." There had been a time when those words would have moved something in Clara. Hope, maybe.
Fear.
The old reflex of making room for him, even when he had made none for her. Now the words arrived and found no place to land. "Not today," Clara said. Her voice was not cold. It was finished. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You didn't have to embarrass me in there." Clara turned then. For a moment, she saw him as he had been years ago in the rain, suitcase in hand, telling her she belonged to small things.
She saw the man who left.
The man who returned for photographs. The man who mistook money for memory. The man who had almost taught their daughter that love could be ranked by square footage. "I didn't embarrass you," Clara said. "I stopped covering for you." The sentence did not echo. It did not need to. Lily moved closer to her mother. Adrian looked down at their joined hands. Something passed over his face, not quite remorse, not yet understanding. Perhaps only the first discomfort of seeing a door close without being slammed. Vanessa took one step forward. "Lily's sweetheart." Lily opened her lunchbox. Everyone looked. Inside, one apple star remained. The edges had softened and turned gold-brown, but its shape was still clear. Lily picked it up carefully and held it out to Clara. "I like what you make, Mom," she said. Clara's throat tightened. Not because the words were grand, because they were not. They were small, ordinary, and therefore sacred. She took the apple star and smiled. Not the kind of smile people use to win rooms. The kind that returns to a face after years of being asked to survive without softness. "Thank you, love," she whispered. Then she closed the lunchbox.
Click.
This time, the sound did not feel like a door being locked. It felt like one being released. Mother and daughter walked toward the school gate. Outside, late afternoon light filtered through the trees, turning the pavement pale gold. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky was clear. Clara held the gray folder against her side.
She
would file what needed to be filed. She would answer what needed to be answered. She would continue, as she always had, not because continuing was easy, but because love had made her steady. At the gate, Lily paused and looked back. Adrian was still standing in the hallway watching them. For a second, Clara wondered what he saw. The woman he left? The mother he underestimated? The quiet life he called small, now standing beyond his reach? Then Lily tugged her hand. "Mom, can we take the long way home?" Clara looked down. "The one with the bakery window?" Lily nodded. Clara smiled. "Yes." They stepped through the gate together. Behind them, the school doors closed softly. The unsigned guardianship form remained on the conference table. The projector had gone dark. The glass room, so sharp with judgment an hour earlier, now held only scattered papers, empty water glasses, and the silence of people who had learned too late that dignity does not need an audience to be real. Some people will measure motherhood by money, houses, school fees, and polished appearances. But children remember something quieter. They remember who came when they were sick, who waited when everyone else forgot, who packed the small lunch, closed the lid, and promised, "I'll see you at 3, then kept that promise every single day. Clara did not need the room to applaud her. She only needed her daughter to know that love had never left. She didn't need to be the richer parent. She only needed to be the one who stayed,